The Survivors is brought to you by our friends at Schoser Talent and Wellness Solutions. This podcast mentions suicide, mental illness, grief, and loss, and may be triggering for some listeners. So please take care of your mental well-being by pausing or skipping any sections that feel uncomfortable to you. And if you or someone you know is struggling, please call 988 for support. So we talk a ton about every facet of suicide, awareness and prevention and what to do and how to have the conversations. We haven't really spent an awful lot of time yet talking about what are the warning signs? Like what are the things that we should be looking for when we're looking at the people around us, when we're looking at our family members and our partners and spouses and kids and friends? You and I have talked a lot, just the two of us, about there are kind of two buckets. I always say it in the same way. There are two buckets of people in the world. There's the bucket where no one knows anything is wrong. My dad was in that bucket. You were in that bucket. Nobody has a clue. Life is always great. Smile's always on your face and you're dead inside. Then you have the other bucket where it's obvious. It's like overflowing because there's so much that the person is putting out into the world about how unhappy they are. And in lots of ways that can be really helpful. It can be scary, but it can be really helpful. So there are two different kinds of people, but what do you do when you find out or you have a hunch that somebody is not okay? What do you do? Like that's what I think, in my opinion, people really need to know, because it is absolutely terrifying when you're trying to figure out how to help somebody.
Yeah, for me, I hid my depression, but at the time I just didn't know how to talk about it. I kind of checked out, and nobody even blinked twice when that happened. I didn't put up any Christmas decorations or Thanksgiving. I kind of just checked out. I wish that somebody had dug a little deeper and asked some more probing questions about what was going on inside my head.
That's key. And I'm really glad you said that, because in trying to figure out where somebody's at, the way that we engage with them, the questions that we ask them, that's critical. It's so important to ask open-ended questions. And I'm saying this now as someone who spends an awful lot of my time on crisis hotlines and in support groups, in grief support groups. And we oftentimes ask questions that are super simple. They're like yes and no questions. And we think that we're kind of checking off the box. Like, how you doing? Are you good? That's everybody's first instinct. Are you good? You having a good day? And then you're going to say, yeah, no, I'm great. Everything's great. Moving on, and then you just kind of flit off and do the next thing, and nothing else is required of you. And for the person who's asking, it kind of sort of checks the box of, okay, I was checking in on my person. Yeah, I see you. And then at the same time, it's like, I didn't have to really dig too deep, but I got the question out there. And the problem with that is that it's super easy, especially for those, and you talk about extroverted people a lot because that's how you were at that time. You don't feel like there's any reason to dig any deeper because they seem great. So why would you? So, okay. So let's talk about, what do we do? What do we do when we start to see that something's off? What does that even look like? What does looking off look like for a lot of people? Like, okay, for you, it looked like you were disengaging. You didn't put up Christmas decorations. What else? What else did you do that was different from your normal behavior?
I was a little snippy. For me, I have a very gregarious personality. Like, you either love me or you hate me. I'm a little irreverent, but my temper, I had a shorter fuse. Like, I can let a lot of stuff roll off my back, but during those 3 months when stuff was really horrible, I had a really short fuse, and I didn't have a whole lot of time in my head for people that were whining and complaining. I also I was sad, but I was happy at the same time. But when I was sad, nobody else saw it because I would do the sadness on my own time because I didn't want anybody to see, because I felt weak. I'm like, I gotta be able to get past this, but I'd be really sad on my own. In my book, I give really good examples of what people can look for and how they can help. We already talked about the probing questions. Number 2, making sure that we're getting out of our own head. Even during the winter months, people out of the house. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't even want to get dressed. I had to because I was still working. Trying to have a conversation, a really deep conversation. Trying to get me to laugh. Seeing my browsing history, probably would have been okay. Because I was looking up ways to, just be done.
Wow, okay. I didn't even know that. You never shared that with me before.
Not a whole lot of people knew that. But I was thinking of ways of like, how can I do this so it doesn't hurt a lot of people? And then I also like had the thoughts in my head of like, what are people gonna think of me? And so, thank God for that little glimmer of hope that things were gonna be okay, because they did turn out okay. But for a lot of people, I think they don't have that glimmer and they don't have anybody to talk to. Or they're at work and they're kind of like being absent a lot, or they're not doing their work, or they've checked out, or they're like, looking up, giving away all their stuff. Like, hey, here's my new laptop. You can have it, right? Those are kind of signs that you need to look for and help them get the help that they need. Whether it's called a 988, whether it's getting them to a crisis center, whether it's just go to the ER or urgent care. Like, show a vested interest in them, because it's us screaming to the world that we're not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's all really powerful and important. And a lot of it too, I think it just starts fundamentally with keeping your eyes open. You and I talked in one of our more recent episodes about self-care and about how important it is to take the oxygen mask on yourself and make sure that you're good. You can't help anybody if you're not good. But we also, that means paying attention to yourself. But at the same time, like, we really do have to be paying attention to the people around us. We're not here alone. We're here with a world full of people, with communities full of people, with families filled with people in a lot of cases. And we do have, I believe, an active responsibility to be looking out for each other. We can't solve each other's problems all the time, if ever, but we can be there to hold space. We can be there to just listen. We can be there to guide someone, to support someone, to laugh or cry with someone. So there's so many different ways that we can show up. But at the end of the day, we have to be paying attention. And if we notice that something is off, like all the things that you said, work performance is suffering, maybe hygiene is suffering, someone who used to respond right back to your texts or your phone calls is totally disengaged, someone's canceling plans all the time, no enthusiasm for anything, you haven't seen them laugh in a long time. I mean, all those things, those are definitely telltale signs, but there are lots of other signs that may not be as common, but you know them because you know your person, you know your child, and you know your spouse, or you know your best friend, and you know what their baseline is. And it's when you notice a sharp shift away from that baseline that usually means something's wrong. Something isn't good. And so, okay, then what do you do? Because everybody wants to help, or the majority of people, we all want to help, right? But it's terrifying. We want to find out what's wrong. We want to try and help the person through whatever it is that they're dealing with. But a lot of us just are not equipped. And so right there, you're just like, oh God, what do I do? What do I say? I don't want to do anything that makes the situation worse. I think a lot of people have that kind of built-in fear, but we don't have to have that kind of fear if we have the knowledge of the ways that we can help people. And you already said the number one, in my opinion, there are two things equally as important. Lifeline numbers like the 988 crisis and suicide hotline, places like the Trevor Project, platforms like the crisis text line, Samaritans, all of these places that you can immediately access. You don't have to pay a dime. You don't have to wait in line for months. You just call. And the other thing is having conversations. It all starts by having a conversation with someone and asking the hard questions.
And the conversation usually has to be somebody asking you the question. Because in my case, I couldn't talk about it because like I said, and I'll say it again, I didn't understand what was happening in my own body. I didn't understand what was happening in my mind. I didn't know how to tell somebody how shitty I was feeling. Because I'm telling you, like, all I wanted to do was be done. I was ready to check out. And there was a lot that had gone on during that period of time. I kind of wish that somebody would have like brought up calling 988 sooner, but I wasn't looking for that when I was looking for stuff online. I was looking for ways to just get out of my head, and maybe having these numbers on your phone, because you never know when a situation's going to come up that you are in a conversation with somebody and they need this phone number or they need to talk to somebody. So, like for me, I have the 988 crisis line as a favorite on my phone. Hopefully, I'm never going to need it again. but life happens, and I may be with somebody who actually needs that phone number. But being there, being present, asking really good questions, and helping to calm down the inner demons, that helps. Don't be judgmental. Just like don't be a dick. Don't be judgmental. Just hold space and see what you can do to maybe like talk to them and get them to open up a little bit more. And if you're not getting anywhere, make that suggestion for them to call 988. Sit with them while they make that call. Help them realize that they are enough, that they're wanted, they're needed, they're loved. And a lot of things can happen. There could be somebody maybe just lost their job, or they got diagnosed with a really serious illness, or they've got some financial stress or legal problems, or maybe they have a history of trauma. Maybe you don't know what's going on. All you notice is that there's been a huge change in them and you want to help.
Yeah. And here's the thing that was so profound for me when I was training to be on the lifelines. One of the things that we have to learn how to do in every case, with every call, regardless of what we believe the level of crisis is, because that's subjective. What I think might be something manageable might be something that throws somebody else completely out of control. So one of the things that I learned that was the most valuable was take every call. And so now I'm changing that for the purposes of this conversation and saying, take every conversation at face value. Whatever it is that the person you're talking to, your friend, your family member, your coworker is sharing with you, that's sacred. If that person feels comfortable enough with you to have that kind of an intimate, honest, vulnerable conversation, you just go into that conversation assuming that every single thing that that person is telling you is exactly what they're telling you. In other words, validate, 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 because I can only speak in terms of the Trevor Project, in terms of data relating to the Trevor Project in the queer community, but one single person, and I use the statistic a lot because I'm just always so moved by it, one single person who shows up to listen to someone who is in crisis within the queer community can reduce that person's risk of harming themselves or taking their life by 40%. That's a huge number. That's almost half of the people out there who are struggling who will survive if one person takes the time to hold space for them and to validate them and to listen to them non-judgmentally. And those are the keys. That's it. There's no great art and science behind holding space for someone. All it is listen to what they have to say and validate it and be there to support. Like you said it yourself, and I've said it a million times, we're not there as crisis counselors, as therapists, as friends, as family members. We're not there to solve your problems. We're there to help you navigate your problems and figure out how to solve them yourself. What if your business could recruit smarter, onboard faster, and support employee wellness all at once? Welcome to Schoser Talent and Wellness Solutions, where people-first strategy meets real results. With over 45 years of combined experience and 16 years specializing in UKG recruiting and onboarding systems, we help small and mid-sized businesses thrive. From the first application to full integration, we streamline your hiring process, reduce time to hire, and deliver seamless onboarding experiences. Our proprietary tools like the Recruiting and Onboarding Health Check and the Employee Mental Wellness Index turn insight into impact. At Schoser, we know that businesses are built on people. That's why we integrate wellness into every solution, promoting mental health, reducing burnout, and creating a culture where talent stays and thrives. Whether you're navigating change, implementing tech, or engaging your team, we tailor every solution to fit your goals. Visit schosersolutions.com today. Let's build a healthier, more productive future, one workplace at a time.
Absolutely. And, like you said, everybody's story is different. Everybody's journey is different. Like I said, I just had a lot going on. My little brain, as big as everybody thinks it is, my little brain just had way too much shit in it. And like I couldn't filter out the good from the bad. And no fault of my friends or my wife or my coworkers, because I hid what was going on so well. They didn't even have an opportunity to help me out.
Well, you can't, and when I say you, I mean people in general. We can't fix a problem that we don't know exists. If you don't know that someone is struggling and you don't know why, how can you address that? How can you help with that? You can't. And that's why it's this whole process that we're talking about, but like, pinpointing the signs, paying attention to the signs, and then acting on that and knowing what to do. You have to be hyper vigilant in the way that you get someone to not only open up, but you get them to help themselves. And it goes both ways. Like, you can't do it all yourself on their behalf, and they can't do it alone. So it becomes a team effort. And maybe the team is just you and another person, or maybe the team is you and a therapist or a crisis counselor or a friend, or maybe it's a family or a whole community, but it takes more than just one single person. And a lot of it involves breaking cycles, because so much of what goes on in people's heads, and tell me if this is true, because this is why I love the fact that you and I have so many different perspectives to come at this from. You've been there. You've been in that place of hopelessness and desperation where you did not want to live anymore. You were done. What was going through your head in those moments? Were you actively trying to throw people off the track? Were you just kind of resigned? Were you playing a part? Or were you just like, screw it? If somebody notices, they notice.
Yes to all of it. For me, I didn't understand how I could tell somebody what was going on. It was very confusing for me because I'd never felt like that before. I'm kind of mad at myself, though, that I didn't open up sooner. But when I got really depressed of this last November, like, I didn't hide it. So things that I had learned through therapy had helped me to identify that, you're kind of fucked up in the head again. But because I didn't have the tools, I couldn't open up, and I didn't know how to ask for help at that time. But I had remembered that I'd seen a commercial for 988, and thank God I saw that commercial because I kept that in the back of my head as all the other stuff was going on.
Yeah, that's one of the big things you and I are out here doing. That's why we mention that number every single time we record. That's why we mention that number in every post that you and I make on social media, because that one resource can so often be the difference between life and death. And I can't think of a better resource that's out there that we put in people's hands. I mean, that's why the mental health community shortened it from an actual 800 number down to 988, the way that they made 911 an emergency line that people just immediately 3 digits and you're getting help. Same thing for our mental health and wellness. And it's just so important that I think I'm just sitting here thinking like about how isolating it is when you're alone in your own head with those thoughts that keep circulating over and over and over again. Like, you must have been like, I just want to hug you right now, because you must have been in such a state. And at least so you were thinking of other people. And that's not as common. You were thinking about how your actions and your potential decision to end your life would affect your wife and your family and the people you work with and your friends. Thank God. Like, thank God that you had those thoughts coming through your head to give you even a little bit of pause. There are so many people out there who don't. They don't consider the outcome, the ramification. They are thinking about one thing. And most people who are in that kind of a headspace are thinking about one thing only, which is make that pain stop. Right?
Yeah, and that's why I made the call, because it was that call or figure out a way to be done. And I think I got scared. I think I scared myself to the point of that's why I picked up the phone and called 988, because I was literally that close. I'm glad that I made the call. I'm just happy to be alive today. It's been a 2.5 years of really hard work on myself, but I wouldn't be where I am today if I'd gone through all that shit.
Yeah, if you hadn't gone through it, yeah, yeah. I mean, and the juice is worth the squeeze, right? It really is. But the problem is people can't often see that when they're in the thick of their emotions, when they're in the weeds and they can't see anything around them, and they get hijacked by the depression and by the negative self-talk and by the feelings of hopelessness and inadequacy and whatever else piles on you. It becomes something, I would imagine, that you can't even like lift your head anymore, because it's so filled with all the reasons why you want to get away.
I think the other thing too is that a lot of people are kind of self absorbed, right? They may notice a difference in somebody else, but they don't want to get involved, right? I don't know. I'm just gonna put a selfless plea out there, right? If you see somebody that's struggling, make that attempt, because that attempt may be the reason they are alive. Reach out, give them a hug, give them your phone, help them dial 988. It's that simple. I get it, we all got a lot of shit going on, but for those of us that are mentally checked out, having somebody take that tiny extra step can be a matter of life or death.
It absolutely can. And I think this is a good point in the conversation to talk about how to have the hard conversation, how to ask the questions that are really, truly the meaningful questions that will allow you to drill down and know, okay, we are in a bad place right now. We got to do something. So when you're dealing with someone who you either have been told, maybe the person has told you, they're in that cohort of people who will say how they feel and you know it because they're sharing it, or maybe you're with someone who doesn't say it. Either way, you can almost always have the same kind of conversation. You need to use very specific, very direct language, and it can be really, really scary. I mean, I use it when I do a risk assessment on every single Lifeline call that I take. This is what we're doing, risk assessments within the first 5 minutes of every single call that we take. And they're always the same. We're asking, are you thinking about harming or killing yourself? And I know people freak out when they hear that. They're like, I can't say that. You can't say that to someone because that's going to start them thinking about suicide and that will encourage them to do the thing. No, that is untrue. Don't think that way because there is so much data to support, studies to support the fact that when you actually ask that question in that way with those words, it dramatically reduces the likelihood that that person will harm themselves or kill themselves. And here's why. When you ask someone who you believe is struggling, are you thinking of harming yourself? Immediately, that identifies you as someone safe. That identifies you as a person who's taking them seriously. You're validating them. You're saying, I see you. I see that things suck for you right now. I see that it's hard for you right now. I see that you're hurting right now, and I'm here. I'm here and I'm safe and I want to help. So that's why in saying the scary thing to the person who's struggling, you're actually saving their life in a lot of cases by saying that. Then what do? Then when they come back and they say, actually, you know what? I have been thinking about harming myself, or I am considering ending my own life. Then you get some more questions you need to ask, and they're just as challenging, but they're just as important. Then you say, have you done anything today? Did you do anything today to harm yourself? Let's say they say no, but I'm going to do it this weekend. Okay, well, what are you going to do? What do you have a plan? Tell me about your plan. And then you get them to tell you about the plan. Do you have a timeline? When are you planning on doing this? Well, I'm going to do it on Saturday. Well, okay. Well, where are those things right now that you're going to use to do the thing? And they say, well, I'm in the bedroom and they're right over there on the bureau. Okay. Well, can you do me a favor just while we're talking? Maybe you're not with the person. Maybe they're on the phone, or maybe you're in person with them. You say, let's do this. While we're having this conversation, can you do me a favor? Can you walk out of the room? Leave that stuff here. Walk out of the room. Go to a different place. Separate. You want to separate the person from the means that they're going to use to end their life, if that's with them. And then you're jumping into a conversation about, so who do you have for support? Do you have a therapist? Do you know about the 988 crisis lifeline? Do you think you need to go to the hospital? Can I take you? Can I make a phone call for you? Can I call a family member or a friend? So you see how, one question leads instinctively, naturally kind of down that decision tree all the way down to the point where, okay, now you've gotten the person to admit what's going on, to share what their plans are. You've kind of separated them from anything harmful. And now you're like, okay, safety plan. How do I keep this person safe right now? And that's what you work on. That's what the rest of your questions focus on. Who's there to help and how can we get you to that place or that person to help you? So those are the warning signs. Those are the ways to have the conversation. And at the end of the day, the best thing in the world that you can do, if there is no other option and there's no therapist in the picture and there's no family or community to help, you either get that person in the car and drive them to the emergency room of the hospital, or you call 988.
And for those people out there that are listening, for me, once I made that call to 988, I didn't see it as a sign of weakness. I saw it as a sign of strength, because in the back of my head, I kind of knew I didn't want to die, but I was tired of feeling like shit. And so, if you know somebody that's out there, help them make that call.
Yeah, it's worth it. I'm awfully glad that you made that call. I mean, this was long before you and I even met each other, but boy, am I glad you're still here. Boy, am I glad you made that call. And if you're listening to us right now and you're not okay, now you know who to call. You call 988. And if you know someone who's not okay, now you know what to do. You have the language, you have the hotline numbers, and you know the questions to ask. So keep each other safe, okay?
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see you guys next week.
Hey, I love you, Chi.
Love you, Ben. Thanks for joining us on The Survivors. Remember, no matter how tough things feel, you are enough, and the world needs you just the way you are. You're not alone in this journey. There's a community here, and every step forward counts. We're so grateful you took the time to listen, and we hope you'll take one day at a time. Just know there's always more light ahead.
Thanks for being here, friends. Just remember, help is out there in so many different places. So if you or someone you know is struggling, please call 988 and a trained crisis counselor like me will be there to help. You can also find an inclusive and comprehensive directory of mental health resources, tools, and content at thehelphub.co. Just remember that help is always just a call or a click away. We'll catch you next week. In the meantime, keep surviving.